So is everyone here familiar with the iconography of Tsongkhapa? Oh, there's a rupa here, there's a statue of Tsongkhapa here. Oh, famous yellow hat. Number of reasons for that, but because in the 14th century he made a reformation of how Buddhism was taught in Tibet. And an important part of that reformation was saying that all the vows should be kept. One shouldn't just jump into tantric practice. One should have foundations. Foundation in the Theravada or vows, as well as Bodhisattva vows and Mahayana vows, before practicing Tantra. And because Theravadan monks in India used to wear yellow robes, he said, and this hat was representative of that. Start at the foundation. Don't jump. And so his teachings are called the graded path to enlightenment, or the graduated path to enlightenment, step by step. No rush there. So the yellow hat, it also makes it really easy, really easy to visualize. You know, all these different deities, some of them are moving, you know. They have objects here, their hands are this way, their leg is about to take a step. Tsongkhapa always thought, the symmetry is so there because of that cap, you know. Oh, but also, you can see afterwards, you just take a good look, Jennifer. There are two on the lotuses on either side of Tsongkhapa's shoulders. There's a Prajnaparamita book, there's a Peja. There's what looks like a Peja to his left. That book is representative of a Prajnaparamita book, a wisdom book. And on the other side is the sword of Manjushri, the sword of wisdom. So he's got two wisdom emblems there on either side in the lotuses, the Prajnaparamita book and the sword of Manjushri. He's a wisdom being. Take a ha. Oh, and in Gelupa monasteries, in Gelupa communities, people say a prayer that's dedicated to Tsongkhapa that's called a miksema. And it was actually a prayer that Tsongkhapa wrote to one of his teachers, Shonupo, a Sakya teacher, and that teacher said, no, you are more deserving of this praise than I. And he changed Shonupo, his name, and put Tsongkhapa's name there. And now in Gelupa establishments, people recite that prayer. Which says, that prayer says that Tsongkhapa is an incarnation of then Chinrizi, Avalokiteshvara, and Manjushri, and Vajrapani, all of them, he incarnates. So he embodies all of them. Tikaha. And then also, Tsongkhapa, as in this merit field tanka we have here, where Tsongkhapa is at the heart. You see the image. You can probably see that later too. It's kind of detailed and fine. But in addition to those things outward, you can see it's Tsongkhapa. But at Tsongkhapa's heart center is the Buddha. The Buddha. That's what he has inside, in his heart. So he incarnates all those beings. Sometimes Tsongkhapa is called the second Buddha. Tikaha. Some of you might also know that Guru Rinpoche is called the second Buddha also. A little conflict there. I was really second, I came first. Nimapa, I was here first. Well, there are different versions of the life of Tsongkhapa. And in some of them, in the much more mythical lives of Tsongkhapa, the embellished lives, not only did the Buddha himself predict Tsongkhapa's birth in the land of snows, but Guru Rinpoche, or Pema Sambhava, also did too, who's called the second Buddha. He also predicted his birth too. So what I want to say is Tsongkhapa incarnates all these precious holy beings. Nagarjuna's Bodhisambhara Shastra says, dharma over benefit, dharma over material benefit. Good qualities, virtue over fame. The liberation of beings over personal happiness in secret. Once in Switzerland, sorry for telling all these stories. Somehow it's important how these things came about. Once in Switzerland, who might you know? Martin Kalf? Martin Kalf. Oh, okay. At Martin Kalf's mom's house, Martin and I were, Martin was a younger grad student when we were at Columbia together. But so Martin's mom, who was a child psychologist, and developed the sand play so that children could speak about traumatic events in their lives through play. She was very well known at the time, and she also, her home was a stopping ground for Tibetans in the day. So His Holiness would come there, and Lama Yeshe was there, and I was on my way to India, but I stopped off, to see Lama Yeshe there, and at Frau Kalf's place. And Lama was on his way to the States, I think. And so he said, "What are you off to do?" And I said, some people have asked me to do some oral history with them, and I think it's time I did. But it's kind of scary because, it was Tibetans talking about their captivity under the Chinese. They wanted their stories told. And he said, "Well, that's okay." She says, "Well, that's okay." And, your heart sinks, Is it not okay? "Well, that's okay," he says. But then I waited for the but, and the but was, first, I want you to translate some Gelupa Siddha stories. This was totally not what I had in mind. Right? And my first thought was, Gelupa Siddhas? Now, Siddhas are, saints, tantric practitioners who attain enlightenment in one lifetime. But I must have looked, I must have shown my doubt on my face. And His Holiness, and Lama Yeshe just turned in disgust away from me, like. So I was thinking, Gelupa Siddhas? Is there any such thing? He said, straight it away. Then it hit me, bam. Anybody's a Siddha who attains enlightenment in one lifetime. Of course, there were Gelupa ones. So, because my generation, people who, even in Tibetan studies, we had compartmentalized everything too. Kargyus were the great meditators. That was the school of Milarepa, and the Sakyapas were the great educators, and Gelupas, scholars, boring. But the yogis were really the Kargyupas and the Nimapas, that Dzogchen stuff, that yogi stuff. So when I frowned about Gelupa Siddhas, Lama just left me in disgust. And then, bam! Then I saw him next, and I said, "I'm so sorry." I was doing that a lot. I said, "I'm so sorry. I realized Gelupa Siddhas, which do you want me to do? I'll be happy to do them if I can." Oh. So he said he would like people to know there were Gelupa Siddhas. Now, I had never done that kind of work. I had only translated philosophical text, and I didn't know anything about monastic calendars. I didn't know anything about clothing. I didn't know anything about that kind of Tibetan. So this was kind of a daunting project. But I went in and I studied and I read and I got help. Did this at Copan. And so I worked for a while. I found it very difficult, and but got through it. Translated these lives, and made the book. Where's that book? And the result of that was this book, Enlightened Beings. On the back, I had hair. I was younger. Oh, was this book, Enlightened Beings, which looks at the life stories of the first 6 Gelug practitioners of a particular tantric cycle that Tsongkhapa himself created. One can attain enlightenment in one lifetime if one concentrates on these deities and this guardian and so forth. And I translate the lives of the next immediate 6 people. This was just guru to disciple, is Gelug Mahamudra, if you will, that technique. So I translated that. Lama Yeshe didn't see this book finished. Oh, it came out in 91, 95. Lama Yeshe had passed away. Oh, but, so I say in the preface, I hope he knows it's done and I hope it pleases him. Oh, so then one day, totally out of the blue, from someone I'd never heard of, Geshe in South India, sent me a letter on an aerogram, and he said, I've just finished Enlightened Beings, and I'm absolutely certain your teacher would be proud. It was just so sweet, Didn't know him. And even better, there's one of the things that's talked about, one of the elements that's talked about in these stories is the reason is passed only from guru to disciple to specific people. Gurus had plenty of disciples, but they only gave this teaching to one of those disciples. And that disciple is referred to as a kabub, someone who's going to be bound to your word, who's going to complete it. So that letter from that Geshe said, you are indeed your Lama's kabub. I thought this was too sweet, Take a ha. So that translation got done. Now, this is all by way of saying, so it was difficult, but I learned a lot of things in the course of doing it. So, for the life of Tsongkhapa, because I didn't talk so much about the life of Tsongkhapa here, just very, very little, short, but I talked about his 6 disciples. So I said this afternoon I wanted to talk about the life of Tsongkhapa. And I think I'd like to rely on this book, which I highly recommend, for the 3 Principles of the Path. I mentioned it this morning. I think it's excellent. And for people who, at lunch when we were talking about, Jennifer, Lamrim, that's different. Here, Geshe Sonam Rinchen does a really good job of guiding you through the kinds of discussions and contemplations. These are Lamrim contemplations, contemplating death, the uncertainty, but the certainty of death, but the uncertainty of time, contemplating karma and how it works, contemplating why the things we think of as being pleasant, happy, are suffering, ultimately because they change or whatever. Ways to contemplate, so it's really good. And he talks about Tsongkhapa's life a little, and I talk about him a little, and one other source here, so I'm just naming some sources now. Alex Berzin, He's online, so all of you can go to that if you want. It's a short biography of Tsongkhapa. It's online. It was 2003, the edition I have here. Life of Tsongkhapa. Tika. The stories of siddhas, who are beings who attain enlightenment in one lifetime, in this very body, one lifetime in this very body, even in degenerate times. Such a person is called a siddha. Oh, think of the Buddha's name, Siddhartha. Artha means aim or goal. Siddha. Even his father and mother knew he would complete successfully, he would accomplish his goal. Siddhartha. So a siddha is one, set out, even in this lifetime, you can attain liberation. In the Tibetan tradition, am I speaking too fast? Okay, I have no idea. Okay, so at some point we're going to talk about maybe the life of Milla and Naropa. Milarepa is famous for a lot of things in Tibetan culture. His life is, I know it seems like I'm jumping all over the place, it's the way I think too, unfortunately. Milla's like a key siddha. He's like, children learn to read by reading his biography. Now the biography is called the Namtar, which is short in Tibetan for Nampa Tarpa. There's a Venerable Tarpa here, right? Oh yeah. Tarpa is liberation. There she is. And Nampa is like an intensive particle. In Sanskrit it's V. In Tibetan it's Nampar. All right, so it's complete liberation. It's all the way liberation. It's no namby-pamby. It's the real thing, all the way. So there's a genre of literature called Namtar, Nampartarpa. They're complete liberation life stories. And such life stories are written about siddhas, people who attain enlightenment in one lifetime. Now, they attain enlightenment in one lifetime because they practice Tantra. That's also an addition. And whether or not we knew it, if they attained enlightenment in their lifetimes, they were practicing Tantra. Look at Stephen. He's thinking about it. Well, so I've had Lama say, even Siddhartha, even when you don't know it, it's part of what tantric practitioners say. So there are these life stories, and sometimes these life stories seem awfully embellished. For example, like the life of the Buddha in the Mahayana tradition. Now, Theravadins might say, the Buddha was a great teacher. He taught us how to gain liberation from samsara. Therefore, we can become ourselves arhats. Or if you're female, you can become an arhati. You can attain nirvana. Just say to yourself, this is really an aside. Now she's really going to take an aside. I'm thinking about a comment you made. I was thinking about women in Buddhism and the nuns' songs. They wrote verses. They're called anyas, or they're the songs, the psalms that they sang upon their enlightenment. Okay, and you're right, and that Susan Murcott and whoever says, the quenching of the flame is out, I'm cool. Oh, Nibbana, that's one of the meanings of Nibbana also. The situation is, when Westerners first defined Nibbana as the going out of a flame, it came with these negative connotations like extinction. So people thought, well, you gain Nirvana, I guess you go out. What fun is that? Like, why do you want that? But actually, Nibbana is more like a meteorological term. One of its connotations is So now imagine you're in the days in India, Nepal, and the monsoon hasn't yet come. But if you look towards the air, the change we have today. But if you look, you can see the rays, like the furnace. You can see the heat. Okay. Nibbana is when you can see the cooling rains come. And then they first arrive. That's Nibbana. That kind of cooling. Really. Really, people celebrate it. It's a happy thing. It's not, you're done for. It's like, wow, the rains finally are here. And also the quenching of thirst and the quenching of fire and flame. Because fire is representing, that's desire, burning desire. And Nibbana comes and cools that. Tikaha. So that was an aside. So where was I? Oh, sweet. That I do that in class too. It's always so rewarding to know that somebody was listening. Thank you so much. Oh, I have to do it more and more now. I forget things. Like, where the heck was I? Anyas. So these nuns who attain nirvana are singing their enlightenment songs. So often they have this cooling in. And the nuns, as opposed to the monks, anyas, are very much embodied. They talk about concrete things, not abstract philosophical terms. So, it's a good thing. Please read First Buddhist Women, Hidden Lamp, and there are a number of books now about women's experience in Buddhism. So getting back to Namtar, and Tsongkhapa's. Tsongkhapa's birth and his life was predicted by the Buddha and by Pema Sambhava. And it said, this is Alex Burson, both the Buddha Shakyamuni and Guru Rinpoche prophesied Tsongkhapa's birth and his attainments. At the time of the Buddha, a young boy apparently offered a crystal rosary to the Buddha, this is to Siddhartha Gautama. And in exchange, Siddhartha Gautama gave him a conch shell and predicted that in the future you will be born and you'll blow this conch shell in the Himalayan regions and people far and wide will learn from you. Siddhartha apparently said that to this young boy. Of course, that future incarnation is going to be Tsongkhapa. And when the Buddha was saying this and giving him the conch shell, he said, when you take rebirth, you'll be actually Manjushri. So this story says, you'll be Manjushri. So that's one of his incarnations, Manjushri. A number of people said that about him. Tikaha. Manjushri would be born as a baby boy in Tibet. And Pema Sambhava apparently also predicted it. Saying that a monk named Losang Takpa, that was Tsongkhapa's ordination name, Losang Takpa. And he'd be born near China. And he was, in Amdo. 3 regions of Tibet, Usang, Kham, Usang, Kham, and Amdo. So, as prophesied in the 14th century, in 1357, a young boy was born after both of his parents had these marvelous dreams. And in the dreams, they were visited by Avalokiteshvara, Chinrize, Manjushri, and Vajrapani. I guess they talked to each other. Hey, dear, what'd you dream? You have good dreams? Yeah, I dreamt about Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri, and they all came here. They came to us, came to our house. When the young boy was born, it said that where his umbilical cord, where the material of his umbilical cord fell, a tree sprang up. And on that tree's bark and on the various branches and the leaves, all of them had images of the Buddha. Like hundreds of thousands of images of the Buddha. And that's why that place where the umbilical cord fell is called Ku Bum. Bum means hundreds of thousands. Ku is body images. Hundreds of thousands of body images where his umbilical cord had touched the ground, sprang up. And then subsequently, in subsequent years and centuries, Gelugpas built a big monastery there, Kumbo. Tikal. Some people claim to have seen these images. Can I get a witness? Got a witness right here. It was also said that his future teacher, for the alphabets, his teacher when he was really young, also had dreams. And the dream said, Manjushri is coming, prepare. And Burson tells us he was also told, this is Chögyam Dundrup, his future teacher, he was also told that Yamantaka was coming. The Lord who conquered death. Death is Yama. Yamantaka is the one who conquers it. So all these auspicious signs for this little one. Tsongkhapa, bless his heart, he's a little one. So he was born in Tsongkha, in this region of Amdo in 1357. He was the fourth of 6 little boys. That sort of sets it in context, makes him a real person, not just this iconographic thing. He was a little boy once. And when he was born, Dundrup, his future teacher, sent presents to the house and said, please, when this child is old enough, please give him to me. He's very special. Take good care of him and give him to me. And his parents agreed to do that. And so from the time he was 3 till about 6 or 7, Truje would come and tutor him, and sometimes send for him, I guess, to go to the monastery. I don't know how many of you know, but Lama Yeshe is said to have reincarnated in the abbess, right? You know this. Some of you know that, right? And so he got his first instruction from the nuns at the nunnery, which was not far from where Lama Yeshe, where he was born. But Truje Dundrup took care of the early education of Tsongkhapa, and it said that when Tsongkhapa was 3 or 4, that the Karmapa visit the area and bless the boy, gave him special. So he had all these blessings. It was good. It was good. And he was, of course, super precocious. You have to memorize so much of the Peja. He could memorize, 17 pages at a time, front and back, and just have it. Look at it once, okay, got it. Next. Got it. So he's super smart and great memory. So from the time he was, and then Truje Dundrup ordained him when he was 7. So he takes his first vows. And he studied with him. He studied Tantra and Sutra. All the texts say that too. All the Namtar say that. Even when they're little kids, they master the Sutras and the Tantras. And Tsongkhapa apparently did as much. When he becomes a teenager, he ventures out from home. 16. Leaves Amdo, heads for Usang, where the capital Lhasa is, where the great monastic institutions are. Now you have to keep in mind the Gelugpas didn't exist at the time. Tsongkhapa founds the Gelugpa sect. So he's 16. He comes to Lhasa and he never returns home. So, So he arrives, he's 16, and he studies with all the traditions, we're told. So before there was any separation or breaking away, Tsongkhapa studied with Mimapa teachers, with Kargyupa teachers, with all the existing sects. He studied with Mimapa teachers. So he had a very broad, eclectic, he was good at everything. And we're told that by the time he is 16 or 17, he is famous for his memory. He is famous for the amount of actual text he can retain. And he has studied medicine since he arrived in Lhasa, and he's famous as a doctor. He's famous, he's at 17, he is an Amche who is known throughout the region of Usang. So we're told. His favorite, wrong word, I guess, but he had lots of gurus from lots of different traditions. And one of the people that he counted as his great guru was this Sakya Lama, for whom he wrote that verse. And that Lama, recognizing his talents, his intellect, that he was really going to do something big, returned the verse to him. This is a young man, he's not 20 yet. Okay? So pretty remarkable. It said he knew things without having to be taught. He was a quick learner and he was a terrific memorizer. Let's see what Berzin says. Maybe look at other ones. Bob Thurman and some others have written about his secret life, so-called secret life. Do you know about that three levels? There's an outer, an inner, and a secret, or an outer, an inner, and a most inner. So in his but here secret means it's a teacher himself or herself telling you what their visionary experiences were, what their meditative practices were. It's not really a secret. It's just that a teacher is modest, they don't spread that around. I had this vision and that vision, I did this meditation, hey, this was quick, I did that, and it's all go yesamaja, and hey, teachers don't do that, right? But their secret biographies, which is usually meant for just a close disciple, says, I did this, then I did that. This was the result. So he has a secret biography in which it said, I trained for a while and I had clear visions of Yamantaka. I trained for a while and then I had clear visions of Vajrapani. But it said that he developed a friendship with a Lama named Umapa, and that Umapa had a special relationship with Manjushri. And for a time it said that Tsongkhapa was so renowned that Umapa came to Usang to study with Tsongkhapa. Right? He has no establishment. He's moving from monastery to monastery, but his reputation is such that people... So Umapa comes to study with Tsongkhapa. Umapa was famous already because he had a clear vision of Manjushri. His meditation was so. So it's said that Tsongkhapa and Umapa met and exchanged teachings. And that Umapa taught certain texts to Tsongkhapa, and Tsongkhapa mastered that. And after a while, before Tsongkhapa would ask something, because he started writing late in life, this is past 25. I mean, actually, there's still he's 62, but there are two phases of his life: an early phase when he's studying, and then a phase when he's writing these important treatises. So there's a point where he's apparently communicating. He and Umapa are so close. He's communicating with Manjushri through Umapa. Tsongkhapa is trying to work out something, pretty much like we would be. You know, we're in a community and we're asking each other or we're debating. Quick, quick, tell me now. Oh, I'm sorry, as I tell you these things, I think of all these stories from Mama Yisi. Oh, so I'll tell you that in a second. But then after for 2 or 3 years, then Tsongkhapa no longer needs Umapa as a medium. Tsongkhapa has a steady, direct vision of Manjushri. So when he's writing his philosophical texts, at first he would ask Umapa, would you please check with Manjushri on this? Can you imagine? We're writing our PhD. Venerable, could you check with Manjushri if I'm on the right track here with this? That's not how we do it, right? But apparently Tsongkhapa would check with Umapa and say, could you check with Manjushri? But after 3 years or so, Tsongkhapa said he could commune with Manjushri directly. Manjushri is the essence of the Buddha's wisdom. So, then he starts to write the philosophical text, and the text we know as Tsongkhapa's, the Lam Rim Chenmo, the Lam Rim Chun Chun, all these. Then the Nakarim, so forth. Story? So you have a story now? Story. Lama Yeshe story. Sorry. It came to mind. Debate. Lama Yeshe said, when they would practice in Sarah, when he was a young boy, he said sometimes he really wanted to figure out something and he just couldn't get clear about it. He said there was this really sharp kid, you know. He was really sharp. He knew a lot. He said, he was, you know, we were in the same class, but Lama Yeshe, when he tells the stories, he was like, he was envious of this kid. This kid was super sharp. And Lama said, and that thing was, it was just, he didn't talk like that, but this philosophical problem was really, he was trying to solve it. So he took advantage of a debate setting. He said, and it was my turn. So I put the question to him. Answer quickly. And he said, and he just came out with it. And Lama says, oh, it was so perfect. Oh, perfect. But I couldn't let him know that. And I said, next time. Was that clear? You know? So Lama pretended he hadn't answered it. Yeah, anyway. So they played, they have fun, you know. Oh, he said, next time maybe you'll get it. So, by age 19, Tsongkhapa was this acknowledged great scholar. He was the most renowned doctor in the area. He had studied the 6 yogas of Naropa and the 6 yogas of Niguma. He was a master of Kalachakra. He was just about to begin writing. Then the text said, Tsongkhapa had strong renunciation. Oh, it seemed to me when I was first looking at these stories that, well, you know, I don't know. I'm sure Lama Yeshe saw that in my face. I don't know. It's just sort of by rote embellished this, and this. Oh, but when I actually got into the story, it's really quite remarkable. We see Tsongkhapa in this image, and he's a scholar, and he's memorized everything. But actually, there are these stages in his life, and at a certain point, he said, Manjushri apparently told him, go into retreat. In the middle of fame and renown and all this, and everybody trying to get him to teach them this, that, and the other, he said, retreat. And Manjushri apparently, the deity Manjushri, wisdom, told him, go into retreat, and he took Umapa and 6 of his main disciples. And I write about one of those disciples that made the retreat able to extend from 1 year as originally planned to 4 years. he did that, Thupten Jompa Gyatso did that by suggesting that when the food ran out, that they could survive on juniper berries and mud. I don't think it's tasty. No, seriously. I don't think it's tasty at all. But the retreat lasted for 4 years instead of 1. And it's said that Tsongkhapa, whom they wanted to eat the food that that people had offered or whatever, as opposed to the juniper berries, they wanted their guru, he was the head of the retreat, to please take food. They would take the juniper berries, and he refused. So Tsongkhapa and Umapa and the 6 others, in a way, were like Milarepa, who says, my outward form doesn't match the freedom of my mind. It just doesn't, they look sort of like a haggard bunch, right? 4 years in. But when I read about it, I realized that it was no ordinary retreat. And they weren't just doing, 100,000. They weren't just doing the Nundro, but they would do 125 times Nundro. That is, you do 100,000 mandala offerings. Maybe we can do that, right? People do that. And 100,000, prostrations, and 100,000 refuges, and 100, huh? But they did 100. So it's said that Tsongkhapa led the others in his commitment to practice. And his mandala offering wasn't done with the metal, the rings that you see. When you like the mind cleaning and bring the good in and start sprinkling. Tsongkhapa's was done on a slab in Woka, on a stone. He offered every day, so many hundreds of times, mandalas. And it said he wore all this away. This was worn away to the bone from mandala offerings. So you have to think about that. It's a commitment. That's a commitment to renunciation. None of them played at doing They did them really seriously. And people were worried, but Tsongkhapa, it healed up, but it was leathery, and it came to the bone. You don't see that in the immaculate sort of symmetry of his iconography. Mm-hmm. Oh, but he was a great practitioner as well. At some point, we're going to talk about Milla and Naropa and their practice and what a teacher does to ripen students. But Tsongkhapa's, so that changed my limited perception of who Tsongkhapa was, to read about his activities during the retreat, that he was seriously committed. He was a serious renunciant. And he practiced. He practiced strongly. Tika. So then some texts say that, so this 1 year was extended to 4, and then there was a break, and then Tsongkhapa decided he'd go back for another year-long retreat, and people were asking him to write things, and then he'd still go back for a retreat. And then the later part of his life, the second half, from like 30 to 62, is when he wrote all of these incredible texts that we now have today. I don't know. Does anybody else know any other additional stories about Tsongkhapa?
I'm not so good at remembering all the details of stories, but he did the retreat in Urka, and further down the mountain range, I remember there was another cave where I think he did Amitabha retreat or Amitayas, or maybe that was where, when he looked in that direction, he could see Manjushri. Yeah, because he was having visions of Manjushri at that time too. But in the place where he did the mandala offerings, I saw the stone that he did them on, and you could see self-arisen flowers, the drawings of flowers in the stone. And it said he did so many that his whole arm was torn up. And then with the prostrations to 35 Buddhas, when he first did them and he had the vision of the Buddhas, they didn't have heads. And so then he added to the Tathagata with their name, and then he had another vision of them, and they all had heads at that time. And he wound up doing 100,000 prostrations to each of the 35. So it was 3.5 million. And again, when I was there, you could see the imprint of his body on the stone where he did the prostrations. Yeah, I can't remember so much about something about Amitabha, Amitayas. There's got to be some book somewhere that talks about these things.
I don't know. I mean, this is new. You've seen this. I haven't seen it. Oh. Body impressions in stone. Pema Sambhava's footprint, but body impression. That's serious, on stone, to do that many prostrations to make an impression on the stone.
Then also when I was at Retting, where he began writing the Lamrim Chenmo, there's a place kind of not too far from Retting Monastery where that marks the place where he was writing it. It was an outdoor place when I was there. But then they took us up the mountain and around the side of the mountain, and they said that Tsongkhapa used to go up to that place and meditate on emptiness. And so there you could see, and I'm not a believer in these kind of things so much, but you could see in the veins of the rock, the actual vein of the rock, you could see lots of letters Ah, which represents emptiness. And they say those fell from the sky when he was meditating. And then someplace you could see Oh Ma Hong in the actual vein of the rock. Yeah. That was quite amazing.
What do you think of these things? It's all right. We can talk. Can we talk? Yeah. What do you think of these kinds of miraculous events?
They seem possible, but I don't know. I wouldn't want to say one way or the other. I have no experience.
I think that's true. I don't know if they happened or not. I don't think it changes the truth of the teachings, but it is very heartwarming if you go back and you see the impressions, that to remember this is just a man and what he attained is possible, but it's going to take a lot of work.
Well, being raised in the West, we have skeptical minds. But I personally think that I leave space for that, that the mind can have a certain kind of control over the elements. I think that there's the possibility of Dhammic causality, I guess. Like the double rainbows that appear sometimes when His Holiness teaches, or just things like that. I don't get caught up in it because I don't believe in magical thinking. But I also don't believe in taking away the possibilities of things just because we don't know them. I mean, for me, I proved it to myself this way. I was a physiology major. I studied the theory of muscle contraction, and I believed in it fully. I never saw that. I worked with bodies and saw that the theory made sense for all the different kind of things that can happen to muscles. But this is how I convinced myself to leave my mind open. I was completely convinced about that. I studied in a classroom year after year after year because it's one of those things that I had to study. And I never could see inside the muscle and see any of that happening with the calcium and the molecules, the whole thing you have to learn. but I believe it. What's the difference? To me, if there's like, just because I don't see the causality of something, I don't feel like I should close my mind to it. I don't think I should go off on a magical mystery tour and, take, Kool-Aid and join the next comet that's going to, you know what I mean? Some of the cultish things where people have died committing suicide by doing strange things. I'm a pretty darn practical
I thought you
person.
were
I
at
believe in,
Brownies. You were at
I
the Kool-Aid
deal with
thing.
electricity and plumbing. But I don't think you should close your mind to things that you don't know just because you don't understand them. I think you should leave your mind open. And I actually think then, from being in a university setting so much and seeing the difficulty that there is in that setting to have open minds about things, how you can't study certain things because you won't get tenure. I mean, I find that to be a closed attitude. So I think it's important I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to think that way.
People who study Namtar, like some of the best in the field, heroes of mine, say, I don't know about these Namtar. They're akin to folklore, It's not, make this distinction between high and low, and classical text and folklore. So this might be folklore. Oh, so during the course of my early career, I sort of career. It all sounds funny, but I had to fight against the idea by arguing that what is folkloric is also profound, can be profound, just as profound. I'm just taking this opportunity to talk with you more. Some Catholic churches, some cathedrals I walk in, just round the corner and see a Madonna figure, for example, with all these wishes pinned to it, bowls me over, just the vision. Now, is it the statue? I doubt that. But is it all those human beings who've attached those prayers and wishes to? I'm absolutely convinced. So I don't know whether, people might say that's a weird way of thinking, but I think it's all those human touches that did. And whatever made that impression in that stone, it's all those people thinking that it was Tsongkhapa's body making it. So I think it made them. In a genuine, deeply profound way. But anyway, neither here nor there. Oh, between ages 32, 34 or so, and the end of his life, Tsongkhapa wrote the text we know, and one of the shortest of which is the one we're talking about this weekend. And we're going to go back to talking about that relatively soon. Tsongkhapa is also known for completing 4 great miracles. So he was precocious, super smart, talented, good doctor, all these things. But after the Wolka retreat, one of his visions had been a vision, apparently, of Maitreya, the future Buddha. And we should know that Maitreya is the Buddha of love. If you thought it was Siddhartha, you're mistaken. Siddhartha Gautama Buddha is the Buddha of Shila. He's the Buddha of discipline. That's why discipline is so important. It's at the beginning of so many things. That's what he represented. Maitreya is the Buddha to come. He's the Buddha of love. Literally, Maitreya. Maitri, loving kindness, Maitreya. Tsongkhapa had a vision of Maitreya, in which Maitreya told him, hey, great, you're going to make something for me. The first great miracle is, after the Wolka retreat, the people they all look like ragamuffins, vagabonds at that time. But they're so respected, like Miller was, they're so respected for their pure practice that people come and make offerings. They look like beggars, right? And with the offerings, Tsongkhapa and those few in that retreat offer a golden crown to the statue of Maitreya, and to the statue, which was just a statue beforehand. So it said, Maitreya in the vision that Tsongkhapa had said, you will offer me something, and it will transform what I am. From Nirmanakaya to Sambhogakaya, you will make me, in a way, divine. You make me really that image that's only available to meditators, this stunningly beautiful thing. What Tsongkhapa did with the offerings was have a golden crown fashioned for the statue of Maitreya. It's first miracle. Making Maitreya Sambhogakaya. Secondly, it said, second miracle. He institutes for the first time in Tibet something that's still going on today, the New Year's festival. Losar we have, right? And with Losar, Tsongkhapa introduced the Manlam prayer, having it be more than 3 days, having it extend to 15 days of celebration. Tibetans still do that. So he organized that. He was so well respected and so venerated after these retreats. And some suspect, I do, historically that, bless you, that some say of Tsongkhapa, and we'll move on from this after a while, but some say of Tsongkhapa, because he was from the frontier, because he came into Lhasa, because he had pure practice, because he wasn't beholden to any of the royal houses, people showered gifts upon him. Because he was non-sectarian, right? Even though he studied with all those teachers, he didn't have ruling houses to who were just his main patrons. He was an outsider. He was a frontiersman. He came from way out in Amdo on the border of China. Who is this guy that's super smart and meditative too? Who is he? Well, I don't know, but he's worth sort of patronizing. So even though he looked like a beggar, folk came out to give him things. And he turned them right over to dharmic activities. That's a good thing. So it makes the Maitreya statue Sambhogakaya. And that's the statue that folk worship. My friends say even in the Jowo, they go there and they see this special statue, which is made this resplendent thing because of Tsongkhapa's gift. It apparently was an ordinary statue before the golden crown. And Tsongkhapa gave it the golden crown. Then he instituted the New Year's thing. Then, he founds, Genden. That is, he founds a house for Maitreya. Maitreya is in the Tushita heaven, right? Tushita is Sanskrit. Genden is Tibetan. He gives Maitreya a home. So he founds Ganden. Tika. What else? I always have trouble. What is the fourth one? Somebody must say it. The Vinaya. Yes, Vinaya. Okay. He gives these profound teachings on the Vinaya that reforms how it's taught. Tika. He taught the Vinaya so clearly that it's regarded as the great deed. At age 52, he inaugurated the Manlam Great Prayer Festival. In the Jokang, he offered the gold crown to Shakyamuni, the Shakyamuni statue, yes, making it a Sambhogakaya statue henceforth. Then he founded Kandan. I think that's all. Tsongkhapa died in 1419 at the age of 62. It's said that he attained enlightenment after his death. That's because he kept pure vows. He himself didn't practice with a tantric consort. Said he attained enlightenment. He attained in one life, but right after he died, because he kept his vows pure. Famous disciples, one of whom is which Dalai Lama? First. Thank you so much. Gendin group. First Dalai Lama. Yes. So, Life of Tsongkhapa. So he wrote great text on, he accomplished all these things, and we're going to look at, in some detail now, hope, the three principles of the path, which is Tsongkhapa's condensed version of what is requisite for liberation. So simple. Just three things. I mean, just three things. One. We ought to be able to do that. Pure renunciation. Oh, shoot. Bodhichitta. See, if we didn't have to go through the renunciation thing, if we just went, bodhicitta, and then wisdom maybe, but renunciation, really? Bummer. Got that renunciation at the beginning. Oh. Renunciation. First of all of us consider that we would like to be free from ego mind and the bondage of samsara. But what binds us to samsara and makes us unhappy is not having renunciation. That's not what makes us unhappy. The reason we are unhappy is because we have extreme craving for sense objects, samsaric objects, and we grasp at them. We are seeking to solve our problems, but we are not seeking in the right place. It's so simple. I'm sure, because I've heard you, I know it's so simple and clear. So we're not searching in the right place. The right place is our own ego grasping. We have to loosen that tightness. That's all. That's all we have to do. Loosen that ego grasping. Two more paragraphs. According to the Buddhist point of view, monks and nuns are supposed to hold renunciation vows. Just joking. You're doing so much better than so many people. Okay, but I digress. The meaning of monks and nuns renouncing the world is that they have less craving for and grasping at sense objects. But you cannot say that they have already given up samsara because monks and nuns still have stomachs. The thing is that the English word renounce is linguistically tricky. It's so true. We hear that and it's so negative, Got to give it up, got to get rid, That's why I like Sonam Rinpoche. He says the wish for, it turns it around. So this is Lama Yeshu saying, but the thing is that the English word renounce is linguistically tricky. You can say that monks and nuns renounce their stomachs, but that doesn't necessarily mean they actually throw their stomachs away. So I want you to understand that renouncing sensory pleasure doesn't mean throwing nice things away. Even if you do, it doesn't mean that you have renounced them. So clear. So clear. Renunciation is a totally inner experience. Renunciation of samsara does not mean you throw samsara away because your body and your nose are samsara. How can you throw your nose away? Your mind and body are samsara. Well, at least mine are. So I cannot throw them away. Therefore, renunciation means less craving. It means being more reasonable instead of putting too much psychological pressure on yourself and acting crazy. That's how he taught. This was 1982, Virtual Guinea in France. Putting less pressure on yourself and acting crazy as a result. Yesterday I was not Buddhist. Today I am Buddhist. Get thee behind me, cravings. I am new. I am new now. It won't work. It won't work, you know. That doesn't work. It does not work that way. Just want to lessen the tightness. That's all. Oh, it's about having a renounced mind. Like, just don't hold so tightly. One shouldn't, I'm not just saying that to you, I mean, me too. One shouldn't hold so tightly. Oh, now a question for you. As always, what do you think about the comparison of renunciation and contentment? Terminology. Contentment. Also extolled by the world's religious traditions. Contentment. That's positive. That seems good. Does that seem doable?
That's almost as hard as renunciation.
Do you think?
I think your story of the CD epitomizes probably every experience that any sentient being has. We get what we want, and within a nanosecond, we are not content, and we need something more.
Okay. Rebecca? Surely we've been content before. We know something of contentment.
I think what I see is renunciation. A part of renunciation is letting go of expectations. And when you let go of expectations, then that provides the space for contentment to arise, because you're not necessarily overlaying a story or expectations onto what's arising before you. So therefore you can accept what is arising, and there's contentment.
I say that's nicely put, Rebecca. It strikes me that it's similar to making space in a way. And both of these methods sound like wisdom to me. But contentment. One of the things I see lamas do is, they're giving talks and they eat. Oh, small thing. Seems so good. It's like, I want that raisin too. It just looks so fine. Oh, man. But it's so satisfying when the lamas ingesting of it. I think we're being too hard on ourselves. I want to turn us a little bit. I think we're being too hard. I think we've been content. I think we know what contentment is. When we walked over here today, and it wasn't raining anymore, and the sun was out. Don't sell ourselves that short. We do know what it's like. We can touch it sometimes. Just like we touch Bodhichitta sometimes. We really touch it sometimes, I think. Can I get a witness? Oh, yeah. Amen. Okay.
Okay.
We'll see.
I will share one more story. I'm a mother. The closest thing that I've been able, if I'm going to think bodhicitta, and contentment was a big part of it, was holding my baby. He was quiet and calm, and it was just the two of us. He looked at me, I looked at him, That was it.
Contentment is not needing anything else. It's enough. What I have right here is enough. Haven't we experienced that? I hope we have. I mean, gee whiz, you guys have had rough lives. You've experienced that, haven't you? Huh? Sometimes where this is just enough, and that's wonderful and miraculous. That kind of contentment. Okay. Well, one can be content. You don't have all these cravings, right? This is enough. That's all. It's like that. That's renounced. This is enough. Because it's never in the things. Even though we want that book and we want that CD, happiness is not in them. Happiness is not in those things.
It's we have these spontaneous moments of contentment or joy or even meditative concentration. The sticky wicket is that they're spontaneous. Causes and conditions come together, we have a moment, we don't know how to replicate it. So then we go look at Tsongkhapa, who learned how to replicate it whenever he wanted. And that's, to me, that's the deal. How do you, because we couldn't possibly be sitting here. You're absolutely right. None of us would be sitting here right now if we never had a moment of contentment. It's spontaneous, it happens. Causes and conditions come together, we're content, we have a peak experience. And then the question is, how do you maintain it? How do you keep it going? How do you keep it, and you can't get it by just grasping onto it and holding it. That part doesn't work because we've all tried that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll just hold my mouth this way and I'll always be happy, or whatever it is, So that's, to me, that's the seeking. How do I sustain it without grasping it? But how do I sustain these things that I want to accomplish?
Okay. I'm clearly trying to distinguish between the moment of recognition of the contentment and the moment when that turns to grasping. I want to keep this, right? And that's why we practice. But I just didn't want us to. I felt like maybe I was doing it. Maybe the story was going on too long. I don't know. But I felt like we're being harder on ourselves than necessary. Okay, that's all I meant. We can't say, that's very nice. Now how do I keep this? Then it goes away. The nice goes away right then. I think bodhicitta is a rarer thought than renunciation. That's what Shantideva thought anyway. And I think we've experienced that too. I realize I'm mixing up renunciation, bodhicitta, but we're this weekend we're talking about all three. And we're a few minutes before break. But I want to say just a little about bodhicitta. Keep in mind what we said about renunciation, because I think the great world religious traditions that talk about contentment, or that peace that pass all understanding, that grace, is that kind of... My father once told me, this is just a continuation of contentment. My father once said to me, daughter, he always called me daughter, okay. Daughter, have you ever felt that feeling like when you've done everything, you got something coming up and you feel like you've done everything you can possibly do, and then you just let go? I said, yeah. I think we were in different rooms or something. He said, that's grace. I said, thank you so much. And some people would say, if they're a particular kind of Christian, they'll say, let go, let God. That moment of grace when you've done everything you can do for a situation and you know that and you let go. There's a great deal of contentment there. That's grace. That's taking yourself out of the way. The self, the ego, taking it out of the way. It's done everything it can do. It's fidgeted, it's worried, it's packed, it's washed the clothes, it's thinking about tending the hair. It says, okay, I just can't do another thing. I just give up. And then there's some space. There's some grace. Tika. Now, just before we break, Shantideva, whom I like very much, Lord of Peace, Shivala. Shantideva says, that thought, bodhicitta, your prayers say it too, it's so rare. Oh, but we've all experienced that too. I think by the time we get to our ages, those in this room, I know I'm probably the oldest one here, but you're all adults. I think you've experienced that rare experience. I hope, we've all experienced a moment when thinking of ourselves first dropped away because something else was more urgent. Something else was more urgent. Now, I suggest it probably involved another human being. What do you think? Okay. This is not being so hard on ourselves. Okay? You've experienced that. Any examples you want to share? Moments of bodhicitta. Mothers do it all the time, don't they? Come on. Fathers too, I don't mean no harm.
Teachers. I think teachers, people who are drawn to teach, who don't just end up in the job, but people who are drawn to teach because they need to give. They want to give. And kids will trigger that. So even if you're not blood related, you fall in love with them and you forget your needs because this seems such a much more, potentially, you see the potential in the individual and the sweet innocence, and you want to help save and make it strong. And that takes you right out of the picture. Anyway, it did for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other examples? Because this is long term. Are you a teacher?
I just retired after 36 years.
Oh, congratulations. Great, I'm sure you were a great teacher then. Okay. It's a rare moment now. This is more long term. Examples. When did you forget all about self in order to help another? Examples.
Well, a few times in my life, I've had the privilege of being with someone as they're dying. And sometimes I was alone and sometimes I was with other people. But in that moment when the attention is solely focused on trying to create the space for someone to leave their body, leave that life, and wish only for them to go someplace really, really, really good, mm-hmm. Only the best for them, then completely getting out of the way and allowing that, just to hold that space for them. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of maybe what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Good example. Yeah.
I'll try and make it quick, but this is not something I've done, but something that I aspire to do because I don't have the balls to do it. I'm sorry to say it that frankly, but I saw a PBS documentary we were watching on a village in Afghanistan where women, they were starting a girls' school there, and one of the mothers, I believe it was one of the mothers of one of the children, there was some story about some of the girls' schools being poisoned in different areas of Afghanistan. So it pans over to it was a PBS documentary that pans over to a kind of human interest story, and then it pans back to this woman drinking some water from a well at the school, and she just, I thought she was doing some Muslim ritual where she was washing her hands and she's filling a cup and the water flowing. It's very beautiful. And she picks up the cup and she drinks it and she says, she puts it down and she says, better me than 400 people die. Better I die than 400 die. She just put it down and said, she was very resolute about it. And I just was just blown away by that because she had no thought of her own.
But she saved all those others by showing them the water was poisoned.
That was safe.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned the question to you about Pelkey Dorje, who took upon himself the karma of murdering Long Dharma. Well, I mean, we got this heroic woman. We've got teachers being with dying. Any examples that just happened momentarily? Like just, you didn't think about it. You didn't plan it. You just self-dropped away and you grabbed somebody, pushed them out of the way of a car. I don't know, something like that. Venerable?
This is a very simple example, but I remember once walking into a grocery store and passing a woman holding a screaming baby on her hip, and you could just see she was in a traumatic, some kind of big drama on the phone with somebody. And I just, without thinking about it, I just went up and I just took her baby and held her baby so that she could carry on with what she needed to do. There was no thought. It just happened.
I was taking one of our little cats for a walk on a leash, and she got up into the meadow, and she put her nose down in the grass, and she came up with a little being in her mouth. And in just a nanosecond, I yanked that leash so hard that that little thing fell out of her mouth and went back where it came from. And it was about, I don't want Karuna creating the karma of killing. And so...
Wow, you guys are really magnanimous. I mean, I didn't know I'd get these kinds of examples. Gee whiz. It's lovely. Cheryl?
So mine is also a kind of a simple example. So just over the past couple of years, I've had some health issues, and this was at a point where I could barely walk or anything, and some kind of little insect was crawling across the floor. And this was when I kind of got this, what happened was I spontaneously, even though I could barely walk or stand, definitely not kneel down, I spontaneously somehow found the envelope, got it off the floor, and called someone to take it outside. And the quick thing that went through my head was someone's going to kill this insect because the place where I live now, they don't have the same view. Because in fact, when I first moved in, never forget the look on her face. She just smashed some kind of insect into the floor. And so, but I just spontaneously, and so this is how I found out I could do this, because this little thing was going to get smashed. So just a little simple example, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Give yourself some credit. You've experienced bodhicitta already. Bodhicitta. Chitta means heart and mind in Buddhism. Same term, chitta, right? Who's a bodhisattva? One who has bodhi mind and bodhi heart. Has compassion, bodhi heart, and bodhi mind wisdom. Chitta, Nagarjuna says, and our prayers say, may bodhicitta, precious and sublime, what? Arise where it has not yet come to be. It's so rare. The prayers that may it arise, and where it has arisen, may it be maintained, and where it is maintained, may it increase evermore. When we start again after questions and answers, I want to focus a little bit more on renunciation, and then move into sort of thinking about bodhicitta. Show you how those who might not know, how that passage, that verse by Nagarjuna, tells us how to read this text. And Yeah, and we'll move more into bodhicitta and its meaning. Bodhicitta is a rare thought. It's so rare because it's so rare that we're not coming from the point of view of self. I mean, that's our whole way of being. As Thurman said, from the time we wake up in the morning till we fall asleep at evening. It's from my point of view. It's from I. And whenever there's I, Buddhism tells us there's my and mine. From the moment there's I, there's me and mine. And this is dangerous. But sometimes we have occasions when we actually ourselves have experienced not a sustained moment of selflessness, but a time when it was called for and we didn't think about ourselves first. We didn't think about ourselves first. That's a rare thought, bodhicitta. It's rare, but it happens in cases like that when you just take the baby, you move the insect. It happens. You walk into a room and a person's turning blue. You spring into action. You're not clinging to self at that moment. That's, hey, bodhicitta. It arises in our lives. It's not something super mystical. It's rare, but we've touched it. We've all touched it. The trick is to learn to maintain it. But it's doable. We've already tasted it.
What arises as you were saying that is, I wonder possibly if part of the reason why we don't recognize it happening is because we're not in it. We're not there anymore.
Yeah, but nobody's asked you to make certainly don't go up to the calendar and say, oh, it happened this day. Right? I'm just saying that we all as human beings have had experiences of this rare thought arising in our mind, in our mental continuum. It's not like it's a foreign thing these Buddhists are talking about. It's just a moment when we actually put that self down. Lay that burden down. Don't let the self get in the way. Something else more urgent is calling for us, right? Move that self out the way, deal with it. We've all experienced that. That's a rare awakening, bodhicitta. That's that rare thought. But not so rare we don't know what it is, okay? That's all I was trying to say. Not so rare we don't know what it is.